Hello everyone, welcome to this session on GenRocket integration with UiPath. In this journey, we are going to see a simple use case and its test data challenges, followed by a quick overview on GenRocket project setup. From there, we will learn various approaches on GenRocket integration. Specifically, we will uncover the secrets of how GenRocket seamless data generation happens along with UiPath automation scripts. The prerequisite required for the integration are UiPath Studio setup, which helps us to create the automation scripts, and then the GenRocket to perform the synthetic test data generation. We highly recommend familiarizing yourself with GenRocket and UiPath by referring to their respective knowledge base portals. Let's kickstart the journey by taking a closer look at the GenRocket Bank application, a demo application provided by GenRocket. In this scenario, we shall assume a role of admin persona who enters into the application in order to add a new user to the system. This process involves filling out a form with the user's information to create a new record with a positive dataset, whereas the negative dataset like incorrect SSN and birth date less than 18 years results in error message. So the test data challenges here are variety of data combinations are required. Data including positive, negative and edge cases with condition data is required to validate the workflow and the error messages. GenRocket is the ultimate solution to overcome all the test data challenges, offering seamless support for data generation and setup in any volume, variety, and format. Prior to integration activities, it is essential to configure the test data project. Once the base project setup is done, GenRocket provides a capability to create the test data cases called G-cases. G-cases are one of the GenRocket's intelligent and powerful feature, allows us to generate the data based on actual test case need. Defining negative G-cases are easy because you get to control and design the patterns on how negative data needs to be generated. For example, you could see that we have linked 4 different generators to generate the invalid SSN. As a result, every fourth data in the dataset generates an invalid format SSN data. Also, even before the actual data generation, data preview feature allows us to visually validate the data to be generated. Great progress so far. Let's deep dive into the most awaiting section, various approaches on GenRocket integration. Although GenRocket provides multiple approaches for integration with other applications or tools and framework, in this video we shall primarily focus on 2 key approaches. The first approach is about using GenRocket G-repository commands. G-repository is a key component that automatically manages the downloading, updating, and deleting GenRocket components in your environment. Approach 2 is using GenRocket multi-user server and the REST calls, designed to handle multiple user requests to execute and generate data simultaneously. Fasten your seatbelts as we deep dive and explore the step-by-step process on GenRocket integration with UiPath. The first integration approach is about triggering the GenRocket G-repository commands from UiPath. Simple and straightforward. To know more about G-repository setup and commands, please visit GenRocket G-repository knowledge base. Log in into UiPath Studio and create a new project and sequence. Inside the sequence flow, add a new activity called Start Process, which allows us to open the command prompt application. In the start process activity, we need to add the folder path for the command prompt application and then add use application or browser activity. In this activity, we need to highlight the command prompt application to run the GenRocket commands, followed by add the type into activity. Inside this activity, we need to pass the actual GenRocket command with scenarios to execute. Alright, we can run the sequence flow now. As you can see, GenRocket command is executed and GenRocket components are triggered and the data is successfully generated. Fantastic. Let's move on to the next integration approach using GenRocket multi-user server and REST calls, which is even more powerful. In this approach, we follow 3 simple steps. A REST request with payload is sent from UiPath to GMS server. Then GenRocket multi-user server executes the scenario and generates the data. In the end, a REST response is sent back to UiPath. Remember, we have designed 2 G-cases in our GenRocket project. The first G-case called negative dataset generates the invalid dataset for SSN and birth date, whereas our second G-case called positive dataset generates the positive data for the happy path scenarios. Let's go back to the UiPath Studio and create a new sequence. Then add HTTP request activity. Select the request method as post and add the endpoint URL. In the header section, add headers and then add the request body with necessary required parameters. Please note the request body has to be in the language format selected during UiPath project setup. If the data requirement is not complicated and not memory intensive, GenRocket highly recommends setting the in-memory parameter to true. GenRocket now generates and stores the data in memory only, speeding up the test execution by eliminating file read and write operations. The G-case name parameter is set to positive dataset. Hence, this request generates positive test data. Whereas for the negative test data, we need to update the G-case name parameter to negative dataset. Simple and easy. As a final step, store the output JSON from the REST response to a variable to use it later. Before we trigger the execution, ensure the GMS server is up and running in your environment. That's it, we are ready to run the sequence. Amazing, you can see the data is generated in memory. Let's quickly see how GenRocket is integrated in real-time UiPath automation projects. In the automation test case, where the test data setup step is performed, we need to call the GenRocket components to integrate. Let's trigger the UiPath automation scripts and witness the magics of GenRocket generating the data at runtime as per the actual test case need. The most fascinating aspect of this journey is GenRocket integrates at the test case level and generates data precisely tailored to meet the requirements of each test case. Congrats, we have seen successful integration and execution of GenRocket with UiPath. Thank you for watching GenRocket Solutions video. For any queries, please reach out to our knowledge base and support team.